Welcome to Zen Footsteps. My podcast is designed to invite you to explore new perspectives and challenge the way you see the world. Through engaging conversations with thought-provoking guests, we're going to delve into the idea that you can transform your thinking and inspire personal growth. From redefining success to uncovering unconventional paths to fulfillment, each episode is a step towards expanding your mind and embracing the journey of discovery. So join us as we walk alongside innovators, thinkers, and change makers who can help you see life in a whole new light. Hi guys, and welcome to Zen Footsteps. I have another friend of mine on today, and this is completely different to anything we've done. We're going to venture into the music industry. So today's guest is Nigel Hart. He's passionate about music, and his journey has been quite an inspiration, really. Started at the sort of glam rock legends of the 70s like Slade, Sweet, and T-Rex. I mean, who hasn't heard of those, right? So he picked up a guitar when he was about 13, and Nigel quickly immersed himself in music, forming bands, writing songs, even playing his first gig in the Bahamas. What a fantastic setting. He was a teenager when he did this too. Now, over the years, Nigel has performed with various groups, including his current glam rock tribute band. Now, I'm going to see if I can pronounce this right. Pouk Hill Prophetz, I think I've got that right.
Correct. Yeah.
Which has gained a loyal following across the UK and Europe. Now, beyond his performances, Nigel has made a significant impact through fundraising concerts. He's raised thousands for causes like brain tumor research and Dementia UK. An effort that earned him, actually, funny enough, a recognition in Parliament. So in addition to his musical career, Nigel has managed and promoted incredible artists from rock legends and members of Prince's alumni, which, to be honest, I love Prince. I'm very excited about this. So with exciting projects ahead, Nigel is going to continue to inspire and make a difference through his music and his philanthropy. So Nigel, welcome to Zen Footsteps. Great to have you, mate.
Hi, lovely to be here. Lovely to be here.
So Nigel and I, we became friends through a mutual friend, and my lasting memory of Nigel was when we got absolutely trolleyed on
Limoncello.
So
Gotta get it in there.
I've actually got him saved on my phone as Nigel. So mate, tell me. So let's go into this. When did you first get into music? How did that all come about?
Wow, that's going way back, way
Yeah.
back. So probably when I was around 9 or 10 years old,
Yeah.
maybe even a little bit before that, because of course the glam rock peak period was 73, and I
Yeah.
was only 10 then.
Wow.
So, but I can remember the fascination I had watching Top of the Pops, and particularly with regards to the effect it had on my father when it came on, because he would immediately start looking at the TV in disgust and saying, who the hell is that? They need a good haircut and all this. And that encouraged me to actually warm to these guys, these strange creatures from another planet, like your Roy Woods and your Noddy Holders and people like that. And I was just fascinated by the colors, the music, the rhythms. And because it was visual as well as just
Yeah.
as well as audio, it was just something that it was just from another world, really, as a child. And
It's funny because the worst thing you can do as a parent is say to your kids, "I don't like that music," because
oh, as soon as you do that, I've seen it with my own girls. As soon as you say that's a load of rubbish, they actually absorb it even more and take it on board as their sort of mantle. So it's quite funny that it's happened to me, and I did it with my parents myself.
and when in terms of music, because I know that's not how I mean, you for a long time you worked in, was it telecoms you worked in originally? I think,
Yeah,
was it?
yeah, I was for 40 years.
Wow. So your first gigs, what kind of age were you? What memories do you have of that?
First gigs that I went to.
Yeah. What's your first gigs?
Well, funny enough, the first gig I went to is quite a strange one because the first gig I was 14, I think,
Yeah.
and I was allowed to go 13 actually. I was allowed to go because it was a bus journey away, so it was a local gig. And my parents said, well, okay, because you're going on the bus and it's one bus there, one bus back, you can go. And the first gig, a kid at school, I always remember his name, Aidan Gallagher. He was an Irish boy, and he bought 2 tickets to go and see Shawadi Wadi
Oh, I love Shawty
at
Waddy.
the local cinema, which was called the Kilburn State,
Yeah.
which was a very interesting building in its own right. It was where they used to have all the film premieres in the 60s before they moved to the Empire Leicester Square. And so all the Hollywood stars used to congregate in Kilburn, of all places, in northwest London, and go to these film premieres. And the reason it was called the Kilburn State was because it was designed to look like the Empire State Building. And it was also the building that was used in the Vienna video by Ultravox for the interior scenes. So
Wow.
that was the setting for my first ever gig. And Shiwadi Wadi were tremendous. I mean, they were a lot more hard hitting than the
Mm.
singles and things you heard on TV. And of course, at that time, this was probably 1976. They had a very big hardcore Teddy Boy following. So it wasn't your poppy audience. It was quite a hardcore rock and roll audience.
Yeah, because I remember
So
with I always think with Shawty Waddy, which I loved Under the Moon of Love and their harmonies on that. What I
yeah,
always found really strange though was that the lead singer didn't have
Dave
like
Bartram.
he didn't have this DA. All the other guys
No,
were,
Dave Bartram was American and he actually joined
was
the group
he?
last. He was an American. So that was the funny thing because they were all from Leicester, but Dave Bartram, the lead singer, was American. And he now manages the group and he has another person stand in for him, which is absolutely bizarre. But it means that there's the continuity there. But yeah, they were actually a really hard rocking band, but the support band
Yeah.
technically were the first band I ever saw live. And they were a three-piece band from America who actually had their own TV series over here in the UK. And they were called the Arrows. And they wrote the original version of I Love Rock and Roll, which was done later by Joan Jett.
I remember, because I mean, I grew up in that time. It was Joan Jett, Shawty Waddy, Noddy. There were so many.
Sweet.
Yeah, there were. I mean, great groups. And what I always say about the groups back then, I know this makes us sound like we're really old, right? But they were really musicians. They could pick up a musical instrument, wasn't manufactured, and they could play. You know.
Well, that's the thing as well. And I think also very importantly, they all had a unique look. They all did their own thing. And you know, Mark Bolan, I mean, his image is still an iconic image even today. And David Bowie, of course, and Roxy Music, and Slade, and Sweet, and ad infinitum. I mean, they all had their own look, and they were all unique in their own way. Roy Wood with Wizard. So there was a lot of visual aspect, a lot of visual contributions that these guys made, as well as just the music.
And what, in terms of the gigs that you saw, what was the one that you, like when I look back and my favorite ever, without, I mean, I've seen Michael Jackson, all those guys, was actually Bruce Springsteen. I was in Wembley. We had lighters, you know, sun's going down. It's the 80s.
Yeah,
When you look back, which one do you think, wow, if I could go back?
I've got to be honest, the only person that I ever saw repeatedly over and over again, in fact, the person I saw the most, who every time I saw them, I got butterflies. And that doesn't happen when you follow a band or
Mm,
for many years. After a while, you're pleased to go and see them, but you think, well, it probably won't be as good as they were 10 years ago or at their peak. But the one guy who actually blew me away every single time, and I saw him 86 times,
wow.
has got to be Prince. I've got to
Wow.
say, Prince was an absolute musical genius,
Yeah.
and I think we are all very privileged to have been on his timeline because the music that he gave to us and left behind is timeless. It really is, and so many genres he covered. And I
I
don't think there
agree.
is another artist that did that. Probably Bowie is the nearest thing.
I agree. I mean, I think Prince was iconic because he seemed to have this transition from one period to the other. And I heard that apparently, I mean, I don't know how true this is, that the reason he ended up really being ill and taking painkillers was because he always used to jump off the piano. It was
That's correct. Yeah, that's
his
correct
big thing.
in those hills.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
he did it, you know, he did it at every show. And you can't do that as long as he did it without there being after effects.
And am I right in saying that he was it him that did the Sinead O'Connor Nothing compares, was it?
Yes, nothing compares to you. Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. I
Yeah.
mean, that was an iconic. I mean, that Corvette, and I mean, just amazing. So, how did you transition? I mean, because it must have been very difficult. Because it's really funny. I grew up listening to rock and roll, and I was almost like old before my time, if you know what I mean. And I was out there, it was Bill Haley and the Comets, and
Oh, really? Wow.
I mean, really, that was my stuff. You know what I mean? Chuck Berry was my first album I ever had. Johnny Be Good.
Oh,
you know,
amazing,
and
really.
I would play that as I fell asleep at night. So how did you how did you transition from the 70s to the 80s? Because we went from this real kind of synth, didn't we? With everything
Synth
became,
driven. Yeah.
yeah, really. How did you find that? Was that easy transition for you, or did you
I
think?
think so. I think the one thing that I've always been very keen on and has always linked all of my musical genres together has been a strong presentation. So if I look back at the glam stuff, and we were very, very fortunate between probably 75 to about 85 to go through so many different musical genres that were popular in the UK, and they all had their own unique identifying look.
Yeah.
So, but they were all very, very uh, what's adventurous. And so you had the punk movement, you had the new romantic movement, you had the two-tone, you had the disco. And this was on the tail of glam. So you had the glam going into all of these genres. You had reggae, you had dance music, you had synth music, and all of these genres were very, very strong, and they all had focal points which were very, very key to the music. And I think that's what made it very easy to transition, particularly
Mm,
from glam to like the new romantic stuff that I got into later, is that they were very dandy and very dressed up and they put on a show. And
mm,
so these artists were all inspired. If you listen to them now and they talk about their influences, they still cite Mark Bolan, they still cite David Bowie. They're very much influenced by what went before, as I was. And so that was a natural progression, if you like, from glam to new romantic.
I also think as well, because if I look at the identity, I mean, for me growing up, the 70s and 80s, I knew my friends were definitively defined by the music. So I had a friend who was a mod,
Yeah,
and then I had a friend who was a rocker, and I look around now, and I don't kind of see that. I see a lot of
no,
what seems to be what I call manufactured music. It just comes and goes. I mean, I was listening to something on the radio the other day, and it was kind of sad in a way. And they're saying unless you have a song that starts with the lyrics straight away, the retention of the audience just drops.
yeah,
And you
yeah,
think about all those intros from ELO and people like that,
yeah,
Mark Knopfler. I mean, they just were
absolutely.
brilliant.
Absolutely, and I think what the key to this, and it was very interesting actually, because John Taylor from Duran Duran did a university tour in America about 5 years ago, and he spoke to the young people there and said, "How many of you guys have downloaded music in the last 24 hours?" And all the hands went up. And then he said, "Okay, that's great. Now, how many of you have downloaded the artwork?" And half the hands went down. And he said, "Oh, interesting. Okay. How many of you have downloaded the lyrics?" And again, half the hands went down. And he said, "So how do you listen to music?" And it turned out that these guys were after sound bites, little tiny sound bites. They didn't have a general interest in an album. They
Mm,
would just listen to little sound bites, one track here, one track there. So they didn't immerse themselves in the listening experience, perhaps in the same way that we did when we were younger. And as you say, we had these long intros and we gave these things time to breathe. And I always look at it like reading a book. I say, well, you can't read a book by reading chapter 3 and then chapter 7 and then chapter 10. You've got to read the whole book to get the message across. And I think that's what's, I suppose I would say, sadly missing,
mm.
because artists often, take a lot of time in sequencing their albums so that it tells a story. And if someone's just dipping their toe in and going, "Oh, I like track 4, and then I'll have track 7,
Mm.
and then I'll dismiss all the others," I think they're missing out on the whole experience by
No,
doing that.
yeah, I agree. It's a bit like War of the Worlds. It's a story. You have to go from beginning to end to
Yeah, yeah,
understand it. And I
absolutely.
and
Yeah.
I remember opening up an album, and looking at the cover art. And we went through a phase as
Yes.
well. We'd get the album and we'd cut it out and we'd frame it. We'd make a picture.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then putting the needle on the record, and we would actually listen to music. We'd actually sit down and listen to music. And the great thing about it, of course, is you discovered track three that wasn't, released on general release.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
think, wow, I really like that. And then they dress like that, they follow like that, they made it their own. And I just
You
think
immersed yourself in it. You immersed yourself
100%.
in it completely. You
Yeah.
didn't, you weren't just dipping your toe in the water, like I said before. We used to immerse ourselves in these records and invest in them to such a degree that even on the bus home from the shop, we'd be taking it out of the brown paper bag and looking at the gatefold sleeve and seeing who the producer was and trying to envisage what it was going to sound like even before we got it home. So it was that investment that we made to actually immerse ourselves in the listening experience that
Wow.
made it so special, I think.
Yeah, it's incredible. It makes me think about, we went to this place called the End of the Universe, right? Sounds a bit like Hitchhiker's Guide. We went to this place, the End of Universe, and I remember Tainted Love was the big thing, right?
Yeah,
And anyway, Mark Almond, wasn't it? Yeah, Tainted
yeah.
Love. And in
Well,
the
Gloria Jones, if you're going back to the
If you're
original.
going right back, which I hadn't realized, I heard that on the radio the other day. So what I do is I always go and find the original and I download the original. So in the wall, they used to have TVs, and it was in VHS for our younger listeners out there. There were cassette tapes, and the guy would
Big,
come
big tapes.
massive tapes, and he would change the VHS and then close the cabinet. And we thought that was so cool. We thought we were the bee's knees, but music defined us. And I have a daughter who's, you probably know, who's going into the music industry, and what I quite like is she's finding her own identity.
Yeah,
She's got her idols, but she's not trying to sound, because people always say, what kind of music is she? What does she sound like? And I said, well, she sounds like her. You know,
yeah.
it, she
Well,
she
that's
is,
really good. That's really good because so many nowadays are so derivative. So many of the acts that are high profile are very derivative of people that have gone before. They're either Amy Winehouse Part 5 or
yeah,
Part 6, or they sound like a 50s soul band or whatever. So if you can find a niche and an original sound these days, you're doing very, very well, because I think there's a lot of plagiarism out there. But I guess there always has been in music because people are always inspired by what came before.
yeah. They
Uh,
say if you copy, it's kind of a flattery, isn't it, to some
yeah,
extent? But I heard a track the other day, and it was like on radio too, and they started playing it, and I went to sing this song, and it wasn't, because the intro, and even the guy, I think Vernon Kay, was even saying, hold on a second, doesn't that sound like this? And he played it, then played the song. I was thinking,
really.
yeah, how did they get away with it? Because it's the originality, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I think what a lot of the modern songs don't do is, that's why I like Bob Dylan, that's why I like Joni Mitchell and people like that, because they told a story. Now we're political on social media, where they were political with their music, and it was
yeah,
poetry, and Bob Dylan was incredible like that, and he changed. And I think Prince did that as well, funnily enough.
yeah, very much.
He transitioned, didn't he?
Yeah,
And
very much.
he was he wasn't very tall, was he? He was like a
He
was he
was very, very small, below just below 5 foot,
wow. So he's only a wee guy.
five
Wow.
foot four, I think, 5'4" actually. I think he was.
So you worked in telecoms, and then how did you go from telecoms, and what did you do? Did you retire from that, or what
No,
was?
the music, I suppose the music thing started very early when I first started putting bands together of my own and trying to get out there and do stuff, if you like. And so music has always run in parallel to my career. But of course, 4 years ago when I actually retired, I was able to focus wholeheartedly on the music side of things. And I dabbled with music management since 2011. So I just took that a stage further, and started to pick up on a lot of contacts and a lot of opportunities that I couldn't have indulged in previously. And I'm really enjoying it. Probably busier than I was when I was actually working, as it
Yeah,
were.
yeah. But I mean, it's
But
interesting because I mean, it's a compliment to you, but you're probably one of the most understated. I hear snippets about you. We got mutual friends, right? And
yeah,
I thought, wow, you're so well connected. You really are, mate. And I mean, you can mention names if you want, but um, you are. And what I love about that is whenever we get together, it's just you and me, and my other half, and our
yeah,
friends, and you just just nice, right? But you do have these amazing connections. I mean, it was like I think we were talking about wasn't it you in Bahamas in the Christmas, was it?
yeah. I was just back from the Bahamas about 2 weeks ago. I was out there for New Year, or just after New Year,
Yeah.
2 weeks, with my friend Don Brown, who's the guitarist with Duran Duran.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just like, it's like, hey, just happened to be.
But to me, he's my buddy.
I
He's a
know.
good friend, you know. It's like we've
I
become
know.
really good mates,
I
and we
know.
just, yeah,
But that
it's
but I love that. I love that about you because it's a bit like let's say the difference between what they call old money and nouveau riche. Nouveau riche needs to let you know that they're rich, right? And then they'll do all the
yeah, yeah.
stereotypes. With the old money, they'll wear, they won't have an Armani belt or something. They'll have a piece of
No, 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 yeah,
string and wellies,
exactly.
and you wouldn't
Yeah,
you wouldn't know. And that class is not about what you do. Class is about how you treat people, right? I was always brought up to believe that
yeah.
class is how you treat people. So in terms of instruments, what's your main instrument that you kind of play?
So my main instrument is nowadays is the bass guitar.
Okay.
And that has been my main instrument probably since I started doing gigs and playing properly.
Yeah.
But I also do vocals as well. So playing bass is probably a good place to when rather than playing guitar and singing, I think bass it gives me a little bit more freedom. And that all happened way back in 1982 when I originally was playing rhythm guitar with a guy, and we were writing songs. In fact, the guy that I eventually went out to the Bahamas with and played my debut gigs was the first time I'd actually played bass guitar when I went out there, because I transferred what I was doing on rhythm guitar to bass, and it all kicked off from there. Yeah, 1982, really.
Wow. So why Bahamas? What's the story about?
Oh, so the Bahamas. So it was interesting. So I was at a gig at the Marquee Club in London. Always remember it was a Japanese guitar player called Kyoji Yamamoto, who was the guitar player with a Japanese heavy metal band called Bow Wow, not to be confused with
With
the
Bow
English
Wow Wow.
Bow Wow
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah.
Annabella Lou. And I was watching this guy afterwards. He looked like Peter Frampton. He had big blonde hair and he looked like a rock star. And he was about the same age as me,
Yeah.
but he was looking on the floor for something. And I said, what are you looking for? And he said, oh, I'm looking for the guitarist pick. And I said, oh, cool. Okay. I said, do you play? And got chatting to this guy just by chance. And he said, yeah, I'm in London. I'm trying to put a band together. And so I said, well, so am I. Why don't we get together and try and work on something? And we must have been working for probably the best part of 6 months together, on and off, writing songs, coming up with ideas, exchanging, ideas. And he had to go back to the States the following year to go to college. And he said, look, I'm really sorry. It looks like what we're working on is going to have to come to an end. But as a consolation, I can offer you gigs in the Bahamas. And I said, wow, I've not even played at the Dog and Duck at the end of the road. So going to the Bahamas is quite a shift in my aspirations, but I'd love to try it if it works. And so I took a chance. I took special leave from work and went out to Nassau, Bahamas, in New Providence, and it was quite funny because he said to me, "No pressure. If we rehearse and it doesn't work out, we don't really have to do the gig, so you can just have a really good holiday. But if it comes together and it sounds good," and I thought, okay, no pressure. First day I was out there, I was at a club, and this guy comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, you Nigel?" I was like, "Yeah. Who are you?" He goes, "Oh, my name's Chad. They flown me in from Miami to do your sound, and we're doing a gig next week." And suddenly it was all this pressure on me. And he said, we've got the Commodore's PA system that they've left behind on a previous tour, and I'm going to be doing your sound. And we've got a guy coming in from wherever on to do the lights, and we've got someone else coming in. And all of a sudden, this kid from Cricklewood was in the spotlight, going, "What on earth is this all about?" I haven't agreed to this. I didn't sign up for this. But to be honest with you, it was probably the best thing I've ever done, and probably my proudest moments were in the Bahamas. And I'm happy to say that the guy that I knew back then is now one of my best mates, and he was the guy we stayed at a couple of weeks ago. And we've remained best friends, and we see each other pretty much once a year. And
Wow.
I've been back to the Bahamas probably 15, 20 times since. And we're family. We treat each other like family, to be honest.
And in those days I had curly hair too. Did you have hair in those days, or were you
Oh, I
like?
had big hair. I had the Kiss Paul Stanley look going on. And yeah, big hair, lots of colourful clothes. And it was brilliant. We had the
Did
best
you have
of
the
time.
wing? Did you have the wingtip collars? Did you have really long collars? Do you remember those?
Actually, I was very into leopard print clothing at
Oh,
the time.
no.
So it was on the tail end of punk. So it
Yeah.
was very, what do they call it? Day glow. So I had a day glow green leopard print t-shirt. I think I had a day glow yellow one and a day glow red one. And I would alternate between those. And some of the outfits, when I look back, were quite incredible. But luckily nobody gets to see those unless they ask very, very nicely.
So where did you transition from kind of management? Was that just like a thing that just, hey, said
Oh
people?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the management thing came about because I had some friends who were all from various high profile rock bands, and they all came together and got together from they were basically members of UFO, the band UFO, and they came together in 2010 and decided they wanted to put a band together made up of ex-members of UFO, and we were actually called, rather imaginatively, X-UFO, which upset the main band called UFO as they were still going at the time. But anyway, we thought we did a good job of what we were doing, and how they were performing and everything. And we did some tours out in Spain and across Europe, and they needed a manager. And at the time, they'd all been in the business for so long and met so many devious characters that they said, we can't be asked to go with these guys that rip you off and do these
Mm.
old tricks and everything else. And I was hanging out with them just as friends. And one day I was taken aside and was asked, Nigel, look, we need someone we can trust. Would you be interested in managing the band and acting as our spokesperson? And I said, well, I haven't done that before, but I'd certainly give it a go. And using the experience I've had from being in a band and knowing what band members need when you're on the road and stuff like that, I guess it was, although I hadn't had any previous experience as a manager, I had had experience as a musician and knew what was required. And so I did have a little bit of knowledge, and I just took it on and gave it a go. And from there, I built my contacts up. I got to know the studios, rehearsal studios, um, promoters, other musicians, meeting people at festivals, meeting people on the road, and just acquired a database of people to go to for help. And I've built that up over the time that I've been involved. And
You,
it all came from there, really.
so you were a plugger as well? Were you plugging to radio stations too, or
Well,
was it?
not plugging to radio stations so much. It's more to do with live work.
Right, okay.
So promoting bands on the road, sorting gigs out for them, making sure that, we get good deals for the artists, making sure they get what they want, working with agents and promoters and venues, but in an independent way. So yeah, it's been brilliant. I've really enjoyed
Mm.
it, and we've got lots coming up, and it's a very exciting area to get involved with.
And so how does it, I mean, one of the things that you said then is quite interesting, and again for my daughter, it's this whole kind of contract stuff that musicians have. I mean, I had a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I thought this was quite a clever model actually, which is instead of an artist puts out a song on one of the platforms and she gets pennies for it. I thought, wow, why don't they have a model where, let's say, for example, you write a song and then people buy a percentage of that song and then get royalties on that. But the artist gets, say, the 90% and the people who buy into that like a piece of artwork. Because,
That's great.
do you know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think
that
that,
sounds amazing. I haven't even thought of that concept before.
yeah, I think it'd be
But
a better model because if I went to somebody who's famous and I said, look, why don't we do this deal? You write the song, we'll sell it, we'll sell shares of it, a percentage of it, and the person, buys it for whatever it is, but they get an ongoing investment, but the artist gets the majority because I always think in the music industry, I know Michael Jackson used to talk about this, George Michael used to talk about it,
Prince,
is
yeah.
and even Leonard Cohen, one of my favorite singers. Leonard Cohen, Suzanne, I remember him in a gig and he was talking to the audience, said that he can sing this song, but he doesn't even own it now
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of, and I
That's
just,
exactly, yeah, so true. And it's so unfair, especially from artists that came around in the 60s, 70s.
yeah,
They were ripped off by the big companies, and they were held to ransom by the big record companies. And even in the 80s, when people were getting big advances,
yeah,
what people don't realize, you get these big headlines in Billboard magazine and stuff like that saying, Madonna's got £100 million advance from Sony Records or whatever, or Warner Brothers. What people don't realize is an advance is exactly that. You have to pay it back. So you get 100 million, and that's the cost for you to make your album, to do all the promo, whatever. And then once the album's out there and it starts to sell, you've then got to pay that £100 million back. So it's not £100 million in your pocket. It's actually like a loan for you to go away and make the best possible product available,
I
you
didn't
know?
know that. So how does the artist then make money? Where does their
So they
money?
make money once they sell more than than the advance, and then that's profit. So then it's split
Oh,
between them and the record company. But the record company take a massive share, or used to when the record companies ruled the roost.
yeah,
They used to take a massive slice of the pie, and the artists invariably got a much sort of rawer deal, until, of course, all the independent labels came out. And then people were doing things independently of the big labels. So they weren't reliant on the big companies. And especially record labels like Stiff Records and people like that, who were working alongside the artists, and even Island Records and people
mm,
in that area, um, were coming along and actually offering much fairer deals to their artists. And it meant that the artists had more clout. Nowadays, what's really interesting is a lot of artists who are getting older are actually selling their back catalogs, basically auctioning them off to the highest bidder, because they know that that provides them with a pension and an insurance scheme for their kids and their grandkids. I think the Queen back catalogue recently got sold, so none of the members of Queen now own the back catalogue. It's now owned independently, and they sold it for something like 400 billion or 400 million pounds, which
wow,
for them at their age, they're not going to earn that in the years they've got left. So they're probably
yeah.
thinking, well, let's just get this out the way now. And quite a few established artists have sold their back catalogues and now no longer own them. So
Can they
it's
can they
very,
can they still perform them? I mean, like for
oh yeah, they
example,
can
I
still perform the songs.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But they don't have the royalties coming in for radio play and things like that.
because I know that
They
was
sell them as, as a
because that
block.
because that was the same with I think Michael Jackson used to own a lot of the Beatles songs.
Well, you know how that came about, don't you?
No, no, what
That
happened?
was unbelievable. So Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, around about the time of Say, 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 when they recorded that, got together. And of course, they were probably the two biggest high-profile male artists on the planet at the time. And Jackson said to McCartney, Paul, he said, I've had numerous number one records, albums, singles. I'm on top of the tree. I've made a movie, Moonwalk, and all that stuff. He said, what do I do next? What did you do next? And Paul McCartney had just bought the rights to Buddy Holly's back catalogue, right? Because he was a massive Buddy Holly fan. So Paul McCartney said, publishing is what you need to get into. And I've just bought the Buddy Holly back catalogue because I love Buddy Holly. And he happened to say to Michael, in fact, you know what's interesting? He said the Beatles back catalogue is just coming up for sale from the original owners, and I'm actually going to make a bid to get them all back. And Jackson sort of smiled and didn't say much. And then the following year, when the Beatles back catalogue came up for on offer, there was this mysterious bidder that kept outbidding Paul McCartney from America. And he was thinking, how can anyone have as much money as me? Surely, if anyone's going to buy the Beatles back catalogue, it's got to be me. Anyway, this toing and froing went on for about an hour, and then Paul McCartney called this guy's bluff and actually was usurped and beaten. And they said, "Sorry, Paul, the catalogue's gone to this guy in Encino, California, and it was Michael Jackson. He
No.
bought the Beatles back catalogue right under Paul McCartney's nose, and apparently they didn't speak for about 5 years
Yeah, I mean,
because
it's
Paul
like somebody
McCartney
giving
was,
it's like somebody giving you a tip, right? And then you
yeah,
behind
and
your
you
back
do it,
pay.
you take it out off
Ooh,
of them.
wow.
So that was a little bit naughty of Mr. Jackson, and you can understand Paul's reluctance to keep their friendship going after that.
I mean, it happens a lot. I mean, that's the one thing I've said to my daughter, for example, if she ever, becomes well known and gets signed, is I'm going to look at that contract. I'm going to pay for
Yeah,
someone to look at the contract. I really want to make sure everything is looked into because I could see from what you're saying there, I didn't realize that about contracts and advances, is that the burnout,
you're
from
better off
that.
doing it yourself nowadays, to be honest.
Yeah,
Any musician nowadays has got the power to release and to publicize and to distribute. I mean, I work with distributors now myself, and they say we are probably 80% approached by an artist who's got the finished product, and all we're providing them with is distribution. And that's all they need because they've
yeah,
got home studios, they've got publicists, they've got people they work with, their own little teams now that work with the artist
yeah,
and put together the package. And once you've got that, the record company is redundant. The record company doesn't have
yeah,
anything to do because once you get that and you go to a distributor, that's all you need. Is the distribution is the key thing, because that's the thing that gets the product out there to the market. And so if you've got a good distributor, then you can pretty much do everything else yourself in the background beforehand. And
makes
then you
sense.
present the finished product to the distributor, and the distributor says, fine, I'll have 400 of those, 300 of those, whatever, and they'll get rid of them for you and push them out around the world.
Where's
So
where's the, where's the money? Where's the money made from the distributors? So they're paid for distribution and they take a cut of the
yeah, they'll
sales.
take a cut on the distribution, but they've got links in Japan or all around the
Wow,
world, in all of the global markets, Japan,
wow.
America, Europe, and they'll often say, do you want a contract with us that covers, you know, all of these markets, or do you want it to be specific to, like the home market or Europe or whatever? And you can build it from there, and they'll put a package together for you and say it'll cost you X amount, and we'll do the distribution for you. And that's
Wow,
probably the way most artists do it now.
makes sense. I mean, my daughter's done two songs. One was on BBC Newcomer, and she's made her own music video, and it's almost like as if somebody was producing her. Do you know what I mean? Because she's
Yeah, it's fantastic.
very
Fantastic
dedicated.
what they can do on their own now.
Oh, it's incredible. I mean, just the software. I mean, even me here talking to you here, do you know what I mean? And I've got free software that I can clean up the audio and stuff like that. It's absolutely, incredible. So now the exciting thing is, you're flying away soon, aren't you? A little birdie
I
tells
am
me.
actually. I'm on
So,
I'm on tour again
so
next week.
tell me about all of that.
So yeah, I mean, I've always got stuff on. Next week I fly out to Malmo, in Sweden, to meet up with my friends in a band called Grand Slam. Grand Slam was originally Phil Lynnott's band after Thin Lizzy, and the original guitarist Lawrence Archer is a good friend of mine, and he's still in the current lineup of Grand Slam, um, along with Rocky, Mike, and Benji, some other friends of mine. So they're touring with Girls' School and Saxon for a month, going all around Europe. I think we're doing about 20 dates in 24 days, and we're covering Italy, Norway, Sweden, Austria, lots of German dates, Poland, oh, everywhere, Austria,
You're doing
and
doing Berlin, Berlin as
We're
well?
doing Berlin, we're
Yeah.
doing Prague, we're doing Vienna, we're doing
Wow.
Stockholm, we're doing Husqvarna, all over. I mean, it
Because Berlin
literally,
is where you cut your teeth. I mean, do you remember the bands? Like everybody went to Berlin. The Beatles went
yeah,
to Berlin. Berlin was the what I love about Berlin. Even the graffiti in Berlin is cool.
yeah. And
It's
that's what they say, isn't it? That's great when you can say that about a city. Even the graffiti is cool, right?
it's so cool.
And
So
so
is
yeah, I'm
this
looking forward to that.
a tour bus or how are we doing
I'm
this?
going as yeah to help them out on the tour bus. We've got our own tour bus,
Yeah.
and we should be doing a lot of mileage, that's for sure.
So you need loads of deodorant because when the stinky boys get together in the van,
Yes, exactly. You
it's
know,
I know what
you
it's
know,
like.
right?
It's so funny because I heard who was the guy? Was it Manson? Who's the one that wears the makeup? And
Marilyn Manson.
yes, and how now after a concert goes off and plays golf, right? And it's like it's so un rock and roll. So,
Alice Cooper's the same.
yes.
Alice Cooper. He's a very, very good golfer.
Yeah, it's incredible though because it's changed a lot. You know, it really has, isn't it? I mean, the other day, even with the sort of younger generation, they were saying now that less kids are sort of drinking now. They're going more for the kind of cocktails, non-alcoholic cocktails, and things like that. The whole industry is really changing. But you know,
Yeah,
so what advice would you give to somebody who's starting out now in the music business, like a younger person? Let's say you could go back in time and your younger self. What advice would
yeah.
you?
I think the best advice I could give to anyone is have faith in what you do.
Yeah.
Don't, don't be sidetracked by multiple um what's the word I'm looking for? Don't be sidetracked by people telling you you need to change. If you believe in something and it's your art form, then please stick to your guns and have faith in what you do. Because I've seen so many examples where people have been turned away. Even the Beatles were turned away from Decca because the guy at Decca said, "Oh, guitar music's on the way out. Sorry, we don't think we want to touch you." And of course, they stuck to their guns, found EMI, and the rest is history. And I think the best advice is always do what you believe in. Don't be influenced by people telling you you're no good or you ought to change your sound. Just have faith in what you do, um, and don't rush into anything. Always, like you said before, with your daughter, always look at the contracts you're being offered. If they sound too good to be true, they probably are too good to be true.
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
interesting because I remember
that's
that
really
when
true.
would you remember with Bohemian Rhapsody and how they were like, oh no, this is like opera and whatever. And I think even I heard a story the other day about Geldof when they did Band Aid was like, oh no, we didn't want Queen, and somebody insisted. Little did we know that Freddie at the time he had HIV, didn't he? And his best performance ever, and it was pretty incredible. But
Yeah,
I think he once in a while you get people like Prince, like Freddie Mercury, you get these David Bowie. They're kind of born to it, but they're people in the music industry. You could even say Buddy Holly, to be honest.
yeah,
They
oh,
seem
very
to be
much.
they come and they go because they shine bright and then they go out like a like a firework. It's
Burn out and fade away.
yeah, it's the music industry seems to be full of people like that, and I don't know it's if it. I don't know what do you think it is that makes the musicians like that? Are they
I don't know. It's
sensitive
it's a
or
re- it's a really strange one. I think there's a is it the 27 Club
yeah,
where all these artists died at 27, and you look at Mark Bolan and you look at Amy Winehouse and you look at
yeah,
Jimi Hendrix and you look at Prince. All these artists, they seem to have a lot more to give, and we were never privileged enough to be able to experience what they had to offer, only what they left behind. And it's such a shame, but maybe that's how it is when you're that creative and
mm,
you've got that much of a gift. Maybe something has to give.
yeah,
Um,
it makes sense because they're tortured souls in a way. I mean, if you look
they
at a lot
torture
of
souls,
I mean,
absolutely,
I mean, Elvis. If you
absolutely.
look at Elvis's very humble upbringing, his mother, his loss of his twin at birth, and
Yeah,
you know how he was really kind of ripped off, and they're so. I think what happens in the music industry, from what I can see, is, and it's like a bit like with Amy Winehouse and her
yeah,
father. I don't think they're. It's like who are your friends, right?
Well,
because
after a while, you don't know. The sad thing is, after a while, a lot of these people don't know who their real friends are because most people are on the payroll. So they don't actually know. And I know of a very, very high profile artist who was with a friend of mine. And they actually said at the end of a weekend, I really wish that you guys could stay longer because all of my other friends are on the payroll.
yeah,
And that was cool. They found that to be very, very sad and hard hitting because they didn't realize this person felt that way. And they said it really was an eye opener,
yeah,
um, especially when you reach a certain level of fame. You've got so many hangers on and people around you that call themselves friends. And you don't know
I
who your
know.
friends are because people want to be with you because of who you are rather than, you know,
Yeah.
knowing you as an individual.
I always think if my daughter becomes famous, that home is always going to be a place she can come and have that food she's used to, and
Oh, yeah.
just be her. I mean, I remember when I was once asked to go up to London and treat. Do you remember the Gandolfini from Sopranos?
Yeah, yeah.
So he called me up, and they got my name from somewhere, little old me down in the countryside. Anyway, and he said, would I come up and see him? Now, obviously, if I'm going to go and treat somebody, it needs, I'm losing a whole day's wages, right? Because I
Mm.
eat by the time of that. Anyway, and I remember, and I said, yeah, no, I'll go and do it, and said how much it would be. And I had to go to the concierge and say, I'm come to see Mr. Mickey Mouse because the paparazzi were all over the place. He was here to make a film. And I remember walking up, and he was a really good actor. He was really good, and all I'd really seen him in was when he was playing Tony Soprano. And what really made me laugh was I'm in my head I'm going, he's not mafia. He's not mafia. He's just an actor. So he opens the door and he's standing there in like his boxer shorts and one of those vests like the Italian mafia wear. And I'm going, oh no, I'm dead. Gonna have a horse's head in the bottom of the bed or something, go, hey Tony, how you doing? What's with you? What's with you? All this kind of stuff. But he was a great man, and the reason I'm telling you the story is because then I won't, I didn't mind talking about Gandolfini there because he's passed away, and he was a good man, so it's a tribute to him. But I had another star call me, and I would say I would say like a B-lister, right? So they're famous, but really wanting everyone to know they're famous, okay? And
Yeah,
they
yeah.
and they called me up, but it was their friends, their entourage. And when I told them the same thing about how much it would cost, they go, "Oh, it's too expensive." And I went, "Okay, well, sorry, that's what I charge." And I thought that's the difference between a star,
Yeah,
right? And Gandolfini, not only did he pay me my day's wages, he also tipped me as well, right?
yeah.
And I think the music industry is like that too. I mean, one of the in even if you look in the Keanu Reeves, for example, he's a fantastic actor, but he's humble.
He really is. And he does such great work outside of
Oh,
acting.
he really does. And he'll go and sit with the homeless guy and the film crew and that. And I think that that's we always have to remind ourselves, whatever job we do, I'm in the healing arts, and I think, well, I'm no more important than the street sweeper or the this
No,
or that.
absolutely. And that's what got me into the charity stuff because as I got older and I realized that I wasn't going to be the next member of a Duran Duran, band of that level or whatever, I just realized that the best thing you can do
Mm,
is make a difference through your art and do something that is positive for other people. And so I got into the charity work, realizing that that is the best course to actually take, even though I'm on a very low level kind of, experience and everything. But I was doing things I decided to monetize the gigs that we did. And in actual fact, went through a phase where I had access to a really good venue in St. John's Wood and put on these free concerts and inviting everybody down and saying, bring your own booze. And it's amazing how generous people get when they've
mm.
had a bottle of Shiraz or a bottle of Merlot. They've
Or
had
some
a great
limoncello,
night,
yeah.
or limoncello, of course. And we had these collection buckets. That's how I got into the charity stuff. Was I said I want to make a difference through music. I don't want to be, I'm too old to be top 10 or anything stupid like that. Let's just do something for fun where people are going to come along, have a great evening, and are going to give something to somebody who needs it.
Yeah.
And so we did the brain tumor research stuff. We raised £26,000 for them. We
Wow.
did Dementia UK. We raised 9 grand for them, and various. I can go on. There are many, many different causes that we supported, and we would just put these gigs on. And I just called it making a difference for music. And it's not about money in my pocket. It's about money in someone's pocket that needs it,
How did
where
you
they
choose? How
can
did you
make
choose? How
a
did you
difference.
choose? How did you choose the charities? Was there something
Well,
close to your heart?
interestingly enough, the first one we ever did was for brain tumor research. And with the Glam band that I've been with for about 10 years now, Pouk Hill Prophetz, great band, by the way, people. Um, we had a fan who followed us around who came from up in Northampton, around Kettering, and she had a brain tumor. And her father and family all followed us. She came to our gigs. Sadly, she passed away, and we said, well, look, this is we've got to do something here. This is important. We've got to do something that will help the cause. So we started. The first gig we ever did for charity was the brain tumor gig, and it was such an enlightening experience to be able to do something like that, and just to give all the proceeds to the charity. um, and we said it felt so good. It felt really, really good for everybody involved, the audience, the
Mm,
band, everybody. And we just said, let's do more of this. This is fun. This is good. We don't need the money. We just want people, somebody somewhere to benefit, and to for it to do some good. And so that's when we did all the other stuff. And it was brilliant. It was brilliant. I also worked with a children's hospice in Essex, probably predating the Glam band, actually. Yes, going back, it was a band with some work colleagues, and we used to do this thing once a year out in Essex and help this children's hospice called Little Haven, who do marvelous work, by the way. And we were doing their charity event once a year and playing for them, and people would be donating money. And in fact, we were involved with events that raised around 1.4 million for the hospice.
wow.
And the feeling you get when you realize that you're contributing to something that is so special and raising so much money is greater than any personal gain, because you just feel so good that you're doing something for somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, and I loved it, and I still want to do more of it. I
Mm.
don't give up. This is a continuous focus that I've got to actually help these people out and make a difference, as I say, through music.
It's really special. I did when Rwanda was happening, that atrocities there. I got together a whole bunch of musicians and sold tickets and organized a gig, and it was hard work though. Hot, I
It is
mean,
hard work. It is, you're right, it is hard work. But the thing is, the joy and the benefit that you get at the end of it, the reward for the hard work is so, like, it outweighs all the
I agree.
strain and the stress and everything else, because you see the results and you see the happy faces, and it is just so overwhelmingly wonderful. I mean, I'm working at the moment for a charity that I've only just found out about, called the Mark Bolan School of Music and Film in Sierra Leone. And I've been meeting up with Gloria Jones and with the guy that runs the school, and it's just in the process of being built at the moment. And these kids out in Sierra Leone have no idea who Mark Bolan is. They've got no point of reference, but the school has been put together in his name, and we're doing a charity gig, or we're organizing. I'm part of a group that are organizing a charity gig later this year, which will be in London, to raise money to build the school. And these kids will be taught basic skills in music and film. And it's going to have such a big impact. And it's just lovely to actually think that somebody from the Glam era, talking about what we started off with, the Glam era,
Mm.
who has no point of reference in a country like Sierra Leone, is going to be able to empower, you know, somebody to carry out music and film in somewhere so far away. And for me, that is the beauty of what we do, is it knows no bounds, it knows no barriers. So you can have someone who's a 70s glam rocker who is now making a difference for somebody in Sierra Leone who knows nothing about Jeepster, Get It On or 20th Century Boy, but can benefit from music. And so even though Mark's long gone, bless him, we are still able to raise money in his name
Mm.
for a really good cause. And that to me is, I think music is the only genre that can actually fulfill that and do that. And that's why we need
Agree.
to make a difference wherever we can, you know.
There's very few things that bring people. I mean, food brings people together.
Food.
Food, music. I did some time in the Gambia doing medical aid. Same thing you. I started a
Oh,
charity.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
started a charity and raised money. Had balls. We went out there. We went down dugout canoes from village to village,
I mean,
and
it's marvelous, marvelous.
it's
What an
it's.
experience.
Oh, I mean, it. You're right. You come away and it's you know, I believe in a life after death, and the one thing I do believe is that what you take with you is the love you've given, right? And the
Yeah,
experiences.
absolutely.
You're
I
not
agree with
taking
you there.
the car or the whatever.
Yeah.
I've yet to,
Material things don't matter. Material things don't matter, but the things you do from the heart are the things you'll be remembered for, not the
100%.
things you leave behind. Nobody cares about the car on the drive or a number of holidays you've had. But if you've changed a child's life or anything else, it's got more power than you could ever believe.
Oh,
It's just
totally.
incredible.
Yeah, it's
And
amazing.
funny you mentioned the African thing, because we did a charity gig for a group called MIAC back in the early 2000s, and that was medical and educational aid for Kenya. And we actually did some work with them way back as well. So that was another charity that we supported.
Because I mean, you know, we should chat later as well. Because I want to go back out. I definitely want to. I mean, I sponsor a young child in Tonga,
Wow.
and since she's 5, I think she's 7 now, and I'll sponsor her until she's 21, I think, something like that. My wife's just finished sponsoring somebody as well. She's been sponsoring her since, and it's, you know, I'm not even connected, even going out there and whatever, but I would like to go out. And I think that if you listen to my first podcast, actually, it's Jazz Straczynski, and she went to Africa and she took a keyboard with her, you know,
Oh, brilliant.
and
That's
the
great.
music healing, that's a lot of the trauma that these young kids have experienced through war, and you know, and they've seen things that, you know, you'd never kind of, well, I hope and pray our children never see, you know. So
Yeah.
how do, in terms of I'm going to help you plug yourself here, so you're going on tour, so have you got any dates, or where can people see you?
Okay, so the I think the Mark Bolan gig that we're organising, the Mark Bolan School of Music gig, is around about June. I've got a feeling it's the 27th of June
Okay,
next year, but it's at the Water Rats. So that will be publicised in the next couple of weeks.
so
And
2026, yeah.
I think it's around 26th, 27th.
Okay.
No, sorry, 29th of June.
O-
29th of June. We're doing the Water Rats for the Mark Bolan School of Music on the 29th of June.
okay,
And then on the 27th of July, my band, the Pouk Hill Prophetz, will be
yeah,
playing, headlining at the Water Rats again. And you're more than welcome to come along to that.
that'd be
That will
great.
be advertised in March.
Where's the
Uh,
Water Rats? Where's that?
the Water Rats is in King's Cross, just
Okay.
very close to King's Cross Station in London. And we've played there. We played there twice last year, and we got a really good response. And we had 2 really good nights, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm sure if anyone wants to come down for a night of classic glam rock, then they will not go home disappointed.
I've seen your glam rock pictures. Just to go and see Nigel
Oh
dressed in
yes,
his
yeah,
glam.
yeah. Danny LaRue. Oh
Yeah,
my,
yeah,
oh
very
my.
good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
tell me, in terms of the tour you're just about to do, is there any? How do people find out about that?
Okay, so the tour with Saxon and the guys, it's all over Europe. You can, if you look up online and just put Saxon tour dates, we're all over Europe. But I think we're doing the British leg of the tour. I'm not sure if Grand Slam are definitely up on that one, but we're doing the British leg of the tour in November this year. But the European leg is from next week for a month. And I'll be all over the place, so should be fun.
And in terms of getting hold of you, if people want to get hold of you, if they want to ask you
Yeah,
advice, or if
sure.
you've got a band out there that thinks, you know,
Yeah, if people want to get hold of me, they can either email me at nigelrichardhart@outlook.com.
okay, yeah, is
Um,
that the best
or
contact?
Or
So
if they contact you and you want to forward me their
okay,
details,
I
by
can
all
do that.
means do that as
I can
well.
do that.
And I will gladly assist where I can.
Cool. So we have a tradition on Zen Footsteps. We ask all of our guests before they go, what is their one favorite quote and why?
Favorite quote. Probably my favorite quote is life is not a dress rehearsal, so make the most of it. And I think I've taken that on board with relish because I never say no to anything and I try and work out how the hell I'm going to squeeze everything in. And although it means you're often on the wire, it's given me some of the best experiences I've ever had. And I think once you start saying no to things, you're shutting doors in people's faces, and it can become, it can become very depressing. And I'd rather say yes and try and squeeze everybody in. So if
Yeah.
you want me to do something, come and see me. I'll be up for it.
I'm the same. I'm the same. I'm always good. I mean, you know me as well. So, but I don't like the word no because I think that energetic.
Negative,
Well,
negative.
but it's an
N for
energy,
no,
right?
N for negative,
Yeah,
right?
100%. Like the energy that I could put into trying is the energy I could put into not trying. So why not
Exactly.
give it a go, right?
Why not give it a go,
Wow,
right?
God. Hey, Nige, listen, thank you. Time goes quick, doesn't it? I
Thank
mean,
you. I've
I
really
know,
enjoyed it.
I know when we were in Greece together, I remember we were, it was just like, my wife was so funny, wasn't it? Because it was our friend Dawn and my wife, and they were just sitting on the sidelines watching us because we were chit chat, chit chat, chit chat. And,
Brilliant.
yeah, yeah, Nige
Brilliant.
and I had too much limoncello one night and there was a band playing and it was really funny because people kept saying to us, wow, are you really drunk? And I don't think we had that much. I just think that we were buzzing off each other.
We were just buzzing. It was just so good, wasn't
It,
it?
it was a br-
So good.
it was such a good time. It's one of those things that you have memories in life, don't you, of people? And
Yeah.
and I said to my wife Naomi, I said, I've only just met Nige, but it's like
It was
meeting.
like we'd known each other for
Oh
years, right?
yeah, it's just like, and the conversation is never stilted. It just flows. You're not having to kind of think of anything, And
Yeah.
but the problem is now when we see each other, it's always at a party where there's loads of noise, and you can never really get to say hello, right? Because
That's
we
so true. That is so true.
like the last party, it was like, oh, bye, Nige,
Yeah, it went too quickly.
It
We need
did.
to get together soon,
It
definitely.
did. All right, mate. Listen, thank you for being on Zen Footsteps. I really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. And I think a load of people are going to be probably reaching out to you because I think the advice you've given, especially for me, on if you're a musician, and maybe going at your own. And I didn't know about distributors and things like that, so it's pretty cool. But thanks, mate.
Yeah.
And we'll catch up soon, though. Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
absolutely.
mate.
Thank you for the experience. It's been a
That's all
pleasure.
right. Take care, buddy. Cheers.
Brilliant.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.